Okay, so this first chapter, module, whatever you want to call it, is going to be just an overview of what you could expect the first month as a foster parent. Now, of course, I have to say all my disclaimers that my experiences or those around me will be different than yours. I belong to a different agency than you, and my kids are different than yours, and the families I work with are different. So I'm not going to get too far into specifics, but I wanted to give you kind of a broad overview of what the first month looks like. So you can prepare, or maybe you are a relative or family member or friend of a foster parent and you're watching this so you can support them. So I do have my computer next to me, so because I took notes. I'm going to try to be casual because I want it to feel like, we're just grabbing coffee and I'm giving you the download. But if you see me looking over there, it's because I have my laptop and I don't want to mess up. All right? Okay, so you have just said yes. So for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to assume that you are the first home. The child is coming straight from an incident, the police station, the shelter, and coming to your home. And this is just sort of an emergency crisis situation. So you've just said yes, which usually means you have a few hours to prep, get everything sort of ready, maybe run to the store, and welcome in this child. So hopefully you have already spoken with your work and figured out what the plan is. Are you able to leave right away? What's kind of the protocol? And what happens soon after a new child comes in? Because the first month, especially those first few days, there is a lot. Now, remember, just want to add too that foster parents do qualify for the Family Medical Leave Act. So definitely take a look at that, see if it's something you could qualify for, because that could get you some time off work. So when the child arrives, they may be dropped off by a transport service. It may not be a caseworker at all. And they may just, hand the child over, have you sign a piece of paper, and then a case manager will follow after. The children arriving all come in different ways. So often, as soon as the children arrive, you do your welcomes, all of that, you're going to sign some paperwork. So placement paperwork, and usually something that states formally that they are in your care. You are responsible for their well-being and safety. And also that you can provide medical care, or in the sense that you can seek medical care for them. Usually they will have started or initiated the state-funded medical insurance process. So they may have an insurance number, they may not, but you're going to get as much as they have, right? So sometimes they have a lot of information on the child, sometimes they have very little. So hopefully they will have some information for you. You'll get a packet. And there will be some kind of back and forth about what's going on. Every case manager is going to handle it differently. Some may tell you the reason that the child was removed. Others may be broad, like, it was general neglect or domestic violence or something more general. This time is not really the time, in my opinion, to be really fishing for details. Just focus on the child. Anything you can get from them in terms of what the child may need, what they've experienced so far, that will be really helpful to you. I like to take photos as well that first day. I'll share them with the social worker. I also just like to have them. I will touch back on that later, but I like to have them just so I can remember when they first arrived. And of course, this is for younger kids. Older kids may not want their photo taken, but often their mom or dad will want to see a photo or see where they're at, make sure they're okay. Sometimes a social worker will send it, so take a picture. Also, if the child runs away, you will have a picture of them. So this is important. I usually will either do delivery groceries or do a pickup order from Target, kind of just to get that must-have stuff on day one. And it is awkward. There's sort of these getting to know you conversations and situations. Every child and vibe will be very different. So some just want to go to their room and shut the door. Others are frantic, running around or getting into things. Depends obviously on the age, what's going on with them. You may see some trauma responses. You may have the child just crying. It really can be a mixed bag. Generally, in my experience, it's just kind of a little uncomfortable and everyone's just doing their best to get situated. Okay, within the first day, maybe the next day or 2 days after, you're gonna have court. And this is usually a time where everyone comes back together and they determine what is the case plan? What do the parents have to do in order for their kids to safely return? And sometimes the child has to be there. Sometimes they're too young or the social worker doesn't want them there. Kind of just depends. Sometimes they will provide transportation. This is something to consider. So I prefer to go to court. Yes, the bio parents may object you and not allow you in court, but at least you go, you can meet the child's attorney, you can at least put it on record that you attempted to attend and advocate and be there and listen. There isn't much to do at the beginning, but I like to be there. You'll meet the parents. It's just sort of a, I like to go and kind of know what's going on. You'll get a sense of, if they let you into the hearing, you'll get a sense of sort of what's happening. In some areas, they kick you out before a lot of details occur or talked about, but everywhere is different. But I like to be included so that I can kind of be a little bit prepared as to what's going to be happening. So if the child is there, they may or may not be in the courtroom. It really depends on age, really, and kind of the circumstances. So after that first hearing, they will determine what the visitation is. And so everywhere I know of and all the families I've worked with, there's usually a required comfort call or first visit. So regardless of what's discussed or when the detainment hearing is or anything like that, there's that first initial contact that the parents are allowed to have with their kids. This might be a call, like I said, maybe it's an in-person. Some places call it a comfort call. So there's usually a first interaction. Here, the kids are safe. They're with me. I am their foster parent. And there's that kind of initial start of that relationship with the biological parents. Just from logistical point of view or practical, I start my organizational systems as soon as a child moves in. So I inventory everything they came with. I write it down. And I write down everything I've added to their inventory of clothing, for example. If you follow me at all, I'm sort of hyper about documentation for a lot of reasons, but I like to have a kind of an idea of what's come in and, decide if things need to be cleaned and if it fits them, if it's a comfort item, what do we have here? And if, I start a reunification box. So, maybe a child is pulling something out of their bag. Why did my mom pack this? I don't use this. So I wouldn't throw that away. I put it in a bin. I put a label on, return home, and it's sort of the start of my organization for this child. And more things will be added to that as we go. Things that are no longer in use, no longer fit, that all gets returned home. Another thing I do is I write down their first and last name, their birthday, their medical insurance number, and I print it out, and then also the case manager's number and phone number. Print it out big, I put it on the fridge, add it to my phone, I email it to my husband, just so it's an easy access because you're going to be asked these things over and over again. Okay, also within the first few days, you're going to be lining up childcare if you are needing that from work. And, sometimes if you can line it up ahead of time so you know that they can go immediately. But I mentioned this just because you got to figure out your work schedule, right? How much time are you taking off? What is the plan for the child? Now, school age kids will immediately start school, and it is within their rights to go to their home school. So you would take them to their school and be very aware of, all of those social things that occur. This child has just experienced crisis. They are in foster care. They may not want anyone to know they're in foster care. And you also may not have rights at school, educational rights. Definitely ask about that and ask how they want you to manage that. Some caseworkers are very strict and do not want you to speak with the teacher, while others encourage that relationship. So establish that from the beginning. But school continues on. Also, within those first few days, there's usually a mandatory medical appointment. Now, depending on the reason the child has been removed, this could mean a lot of different things. For example, there may be a forensic exam if there's concerns for sexual abuse. If there's physical abuse, there's going to be different types of exams, but they have to be seen typically at a very specific medical place, and it's a very specific type of appointment, and it's long. So if you have siblings and they're all coming at once, I always recommend bringing someone so that, if one has to be waiting in the lobby and the others with the doctor, I don't know. I always bring someone or my husband. But sometimes there's shots, there's vaccinations that occur. Sometimes they have to pee in a cup. There could be a million different things that happen. So bring juice, bring snacks, bring the iPad, bring activities, a change of clothes, diapers, all those supplies that you need. And while you're there, you can mention things to the doctor that you have already seen. I try to put it all out there. It's in a record because you don't know how long the child will be with you. In that first month, they may be moved quickly to go to a relative, and these medical records will continue on. So I try to put it all in there. If I've observed anything, I state it for the record. As a minor thing, some agencies are very particular in what you can give in terms of medication, even over the counter. So I try to get a list of things that I'm allowed to give to the child, even things like bug spray, kid-safe bug spray, sunscreen, Tylenol, Benadryl, all these types of things, Tums. You can ask and get a letter from the doctor saying that you are allowed to give these children over-the-counter medicine, and then they'll also give you the dosage based on their weight. All right, so that's like a packed first few days. There's a lot more to come, but it sort of starts to spread out a little. That visitation schedule will then be put in place once the court determines, okay, it's 3 times a week, 3 hours at a time with mom. This is just an example. So now it becomes like a whole scheduling thing. You are deciding, are you going to be transporting? Who's monitoring it? Where is it taking place? Are these supervised, unsupervised? There's so many details to go through, and it sort of becomes like a scheduling thing. But visits will start pretty quickly and start moving unless there's like a restraining order or some type of criminal charge, and there's other things to be worked out in other courts. So the visitation does start to get rolling, and then you at least kind of have that plan for work and your personal life and all that. You can start to fill everything in. A few notes on the visits. I know I have a lot of content about this, but just make sure that you're super clear in what the rules are, what you need to bring, and what the expectation is from you, because you just want to start off on a really great foot. The relationship with the workers is brand new, and also with the family and the child. So I always just try to be ultra professional while being compassionate and cover all details so that I'm prepared. I'm set up for success because then everyone else will be as well. And so, like I said, this first few visits can be really uncomfortable. And if you have the details ahead of time, if you have all the information, it does help kind of ease into that. And the child, remember, is going to be feeding off of your vibe. So if you are really nervous and frantic or not sure where to go and all this, they're going to be feeling that too. So I try to just remain calm, neutral, and just be as prepared as possible. Of course, by the way, you can never be prepared for everything. Okay, I'm going to read a list because I sort of jotted down some things to maybe expect in the first month. And I would say it's maybe 1 to 4 appointments per week. Now, you can crunch them all together. So if you're taking 5 days off of work, maybe you can crunch things into one day. Obviously, keep in mind the child's mental health and how much can they handle. But that first month is a lot of assessing. Sometimes the county knows very little about the kids. Sometimes they know a lot, but they need to have these formal assessments done so that services can be provided to the child and to you or whoever needs it. So people to be coming in or appointments you're going to be going to. So for medically fragile children, or if there's a medical concern, there potentially will be additional training you need, nurse visits, all of that, different doctors' visits. For all kids, you'll need to establish care at a pediatrician. If you are going to a new pediatrician, you're going to have all of the advocates come in. So hopefully the CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate, or the GAL, guardian ad litem. And these are people that are going to speak for the child in court. There may also be an attorney. Everywhere is different, but hopefully an advocate will come and meet the child. They're going to see your space and make sure that the child's in a good spot, in a good home with you. Okay, so you're also going to have mental health assessments often happen at the beginning, and just to kind of, again, get that starting point. I've even had some go to visits to kind of assess how they're going. So there's a lot of these mental health considerations happening that first month. Also early intervention assessments. So if there's any neglect, there's usually, developmental delays to consider. And by the way, the trauma of removal can also cause, regressions. So there's a lot going on, and they like to kind of make those assessments in the first month. Often you will also have it's called something different everywhere you are, like a level of care. So they're going to determine what the child's reimbursement is for foster care. So every child typically enters at just a basic rate. Again, because they don't know a lot. So that's usually what happens, not always. And you're going to have these interviews or a phone call to determine, does the rate need to be increased because there's more needs for the child? Usually it happens at the beginning, hopefully, just so they can kind of like make sure that all of that support is in place. Level of care. Sometimes there's a full team meeting at the beginning in the first month with the parents and all the different people on the case, different case managers and social workers. There might be extended relative visits or sibling visits. If there's siblings that had to be split, those types of things might be happening or being established at the beginning. So it's a busy month and it's a lot of just kind of getting things into the calendar and figuring that out. It's totally doable, but it is busy. I want to talk a minute, for maybe more than a minute, about if you are in a partnership, what that first month may look like with your partner. So what I do, because I am married, is we do a lot of divide and conquering. So the big meetings where we're like meeting the case manager, the main point of contact, we're both there. That first visit, we both go to meet the parents. And then other than that, oftentimes we divide and conquer and play to our strengths. So I do a lot of the phone calls, 'cause there can be a lot. My husband will do a lot of the driving around, kind of different medical appointments. We do a lot of divide and conquering. It's exhausting, and sometimes it feels like everyone's moving at a different pace. That's normal, and it settles. So just know that it does settle down. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, if you can, try to get a date night and try to get some time away within that first month to just breathe and like be together and process. Even if you're just going to like go to a late night movie and veg out. Just see if you can step away at least once in that first month. The relationship that you have with the child's parent is also emerging and starting here. So I always try to remind myself and people I work with that this family is in crisis. So the first month is crisis. There might be anger and resentment or fear or stress. So much can be going on with the family and the child. But just to talk about the parents, your first interactions might be tense, and that's normal. I always try to recenter myself, like this family is going through the worst time of their life. And so do I grant them a little patience and grace? Of course I do. Do you forgive them for being late or missing something? Yes. We are all human, and like no matter what happened, it is not a good time for them. And I always try to like keep that back in my head as we are navigating it and getting to know each other. There may be things that come up, like they have opinions on how you are dressing the children or styling their hair, or things like that, and I welcome it and I accept it and I remain neutral and open. These are their children and they are not mine, and it's also a brand new relationship, so I'm not passive. I don't let people walk all over me, but if you've been watching me long enough, you know where I stand on a lot of things, and I try to remain open. That is a bird clock, because of course I have a clock that makes bird sounds. The relationship with the child for the first month will also go through its ups and downs. You may be in a honeymoon period, which is where the child is maybe on their best behavior and they're holding it in because they don't trust you. They don't know what's going to happen if they show their true self or their real feelings. But remember, they're also in crisis. They are having the worst time of their life. Even if life before was bad or abusive or neglectful, whatever, it is still a horrific situation to be removed from your family and placed into foster care. So center yourself around that. Whenever there is tension or a problem, this child is in crisis. So keep things low key. That's sort of like the vibe. There's going to be so much going on in that first month that I try not to overbook other stuff. So sure, if the child, it's in their personality, wants to get out and explore, of course, we can go to the zoo, the museums, or whatever. But make time for rest. So it is okay to watch extra TV, play extra video games, to sleep in. Rest is natural and normal, especially in time in crisis. You need rest. And so try not to overbook with other stuff. Maybe you're not going to go to all of those family gatherings and all those, traditional dinners or whatever you're going to do. Feel it out first and follow their vibe. Include the child, ask them what they're comfortable with, and just know that their behaviors and feelings may change, and allow for change, right? So something they told you the first week they were with you may change, especially, let's just be practical here. When you meet someone for the first time, you aren't showing exactly who you are, perhaps, and as you peel back the layers, you learn a bit more and things may change. I'm not going to get too much into the trauma responses that you might be seeing. I could talk forever about that. But generally speaking, the core self-care things are going to be probably the hardest at the beginning. So your sleep may be disruptive, poor sleep hygiene. There's a lot going on. Prepare to be up at night, or have hard bedtimes, or hard in the morning getting them out to school. So sleep is definitely something to work through. Eating, so you might have kids hoarding, you might have kids eating a lot and then getting sick, or you might have kids who are, diagnosed with failure to thrive, who are not eating. And so food in general, I try to keep things as easy as possible. I don't, if you know me, I don't pick fights over food. Whatever you want to eat, we're eating. And, managing healthy diet moving forward is something you navigate slowly as you get to know and you earn the respect and trust from the child. And so I have a ton of safe foods in my pantry, and if there's something they want to eat, I get it for them and we go from there. Hygiene and grooming, things like that, also might be more of a struggle. So sometimes with kids who have been neglected, you might have matted hair that has to be professionally supported. Lice, sometimes, I keep a kit just in case. And there might be a lot of triggers as related to baths and showers and cleaning and all that. And by triggers, it might just be that it's not something that they did a lot, so it's not something they're comfortable with. And also it's a brand new house and you're asking them to take a shower there. All of that is very hard. Using the bathroom can be difficult with bedwetting or having accidents during the day of all ages. These are all things that are going to be kind of firing off or can fire off that first month. So you just take it as it comes and support as it comes. And you were trained for this. So it's a lot to kind of manage, but it's totally possible, and you will work through it, and you will support and care and love them and be compassionate. And that's what you can do at that time. Try not, if you feel yourself getting triggered or frustrated, take your breaks, walk away. But getting through that first month, it's important to kind of just let things ride and take it as it comes. A few things regarding your own self-care. So if your agency has a support group, show up. That's in my opinion, one of the most important things you can do. If you see a therapist, make sure you're making those appointments. take some time, 15 minutes a day, to figure out what your time to decompress and process, and rest. So if you didn't have kids, even if you have kids in the home, I would argue that you don't have the stamina for the first month. You're going to be tired. You're going to have to work up, and there's a lot going on. You're going to be mentally drained. You have to process it all. Again, totally doable. It's just kind of get through it, get your body, your mind in the game, and just wrapping yourself and your brain around what is going on. Okay, a few curveballs that could happen in the first month. Of course, not all the curveballs, right? Okay, so often a relative is identified right at the beginning, maybe a local one. So the child may be with you for only a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then move in with the relative. Or if they have siblings that have been separated, the social workers and placement workers may still be trying to find a foster home that can take all of them. So the child may move out to go live at another house that has more capacity to manage the whole set of siblings. Just looking at my notes. So they may just return home because there's an error, right? CPS makes mistakes. I definitely have friends who, I think one had the child only for like 3 hours, and it was a mistake and all worked out. So that could happen. There may be another parent, another biological parent that can take custody. There's all different scenarios, right? And, there might be runaways, right? So kids may want to leave to go find their parents, to get out of your house, to go find their sibling, to go to their friends, go to their boyfriend, whatever it is. So that can happen, and you should at least be prepared and know the protocol and be mindful if you're starting to see the child get that flight response. You can't always identify it though. So that's why I'm saying it might be a curveball. It might just happen. And yeah, court can also go a variety of ways. Like I said, they may end up returning home. It's a mistake. Or they may not offer reunification services to every child, especially if there's history with CPS or other kids that they've had adopted, like came into the system and didn't reunify and then were adopted. So not every child or not every family receives reunification services. And so that may also be a curveball that happens at court, and that sort of totally changes the path forward for that family. Okay, almost done. So my final pro tips. I'm not a pro, but some things that came to mind as I was typing up my notes. So keep record of everyone that comes into your house. Write down their names, emails, phone numbers, their title, like who they are, what department they work in, just because it's a lot. I always need to write it down. Don't be worried about asking too many questions. If they're going to get annoyed with you, that's fine. You can type up your questions and send it in an email. Ask your questions so that you feel prepared and that you understand what's going on. And just know, though, they may not have the answers to all your questions. So I use delivery groceries. I also have a cleaning person. These are obviously things that not everyone can manage, but if you are able to, it can be very helpful in that first month. If you're not a foster parent and you're watching this, you could offer to help clean someone's house or send over a cleaning service. It might be helpful in that first month. Other things is when the child moves in, you may want to give them the opportunity to personalize their space. I love wall decals, as you can see. I have some in this room. I'm in the playroom. And so finding a way for them to personalize their space, their bedroom, and feel like it's their home. Can they put pictures of their family up on their mantle? Like, how can little touches of them be sprinkled throughout the house? It can really help them kind of start to get comfortable and relax in the space. Okay, you're not going to like this one, but constant supervision may be needed. And when constant, I mean like 99%. So I try to stay within eye and earshot. I don't know this child, and it is my job to keep them safe. And yeah, teens may, older kids or teens may go in their room and shut the door, which is fine. They're in their room. They're safe. We know what's going on. But Generally, I like to kind of be aware of what's going on in the house. I am responsible for them, so I try to keep close supervision. If you have pets as well, be really mindful of when you leave the pet with the child. Just, you don't have to make it obvious that you are constantly supervising, but just a little note from me. And just know that there's a lot of formalities at the beginning. Things can feel awkward and rigid. Sometimes you will blend really well with the team and the parents and everyone, and sometimes you won't. And it is okay if it's a little bit awkward at the beginning, even with the child. You may feel like a glorified babysitter, and that's normal. And I just always say, like, get through the first month, get through those first few weeks, kind of get everything down, get into your rhythm, and then, re-examine and rethink what's happening and rethink the rules and how the schedule and the routine goes. Kind of just get through it, get into your rhythm, and it does get easier. Okay, that was a lot. That was the first month, right? I'm going to be doing probably 2 more of this, kind of what happens in the middle of foster care, like when the parents are working their case and, we're just kind of hanging out in the middle of that time. And then I'll do 1 more video about wrapping up the case and heading towards reunification and what that looks like. So that was the first month. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. I can do some follow-up content if there's specific things that you want me to dive deeper in. Obviously, I have a lot of scripts on these occasions I talked about, so you can go to those and kind of refresh your mind if you are anticipating getting a new child placed with you soon. And yeah, I'm here for you, and you're going to get through it. It's going to be fine. And it might be easy peasy. Who knows? I'm going to hope for that. I hope that you come to me and say, Laura, it was so much easier. It was not a big deal. We're like good to go. I hope that's what happens. But if not, I am also here for you and happy to answer questions or share what I've done in certain situations. And we'll get through it together. All right. Take care.